Hey, what's up everyone? I hope that 2021 has been treating you guys well so far. And today I've got another game that we're going to build completely from scratch using Flutter. And that game is of course Pokemon. This can be another one to add to our list of nostalgic games that I used to play a lot when I was a kid. And I must say, creating these games completely from scratch has been teaching me a lot about the Flutter framework as well as the Dart language. So for me personally, it's been great, but I hope that for anyone else watching that this is of some educational value or even just a small source of inspiration, because if you're a beginner coder, it can be quite difficult to get over that initial hump when you're learning programming for the first time. And so with that being said, if you guys have any game recommendations you want to see me build, just leave me a comment below and I'll come around to it if it's if it's an interesting idea. So with that being said, I'm going to start building this from the same point I've built all my other projects, and that's just completely from scratch. So if you open up a brand new Flutter app, this is what you should get. And I'm going to delete everything from here below. We're going to complete everything from scratch, and we'll just leave this main function. And let's just create a stateless widget and put my app in there, and let's just do the usual setting up. Okay, so in the material app, let's put I always check this banner off, right? I don't want to see that. And for the home, let's call it homepage. And under the stateless widget, we're going to create a stateful widget called homepage. And instead of returning a container, we're going to return a scaffold. And so if you save this and run it, we should just get a blank app that's just white. And this is where we're going to start. Now I'm going to create this in like a Game Boy style where we have controls on the bottom and the screen on the top. And so the way we're going to do that is let's put something in the body. Okay, so we're going to put a column, and in the children of the column, if you've seen any of my other videos, I've been doing this a lot where I put expanded widgets in there. And so basically, just to show you what I mean, if I have an expanded widget with a red container and I have two of these, and let's change this to blue. What this should do is you should just split the screen into two halves. Now for this game, I actually want, so like I said, the controls down here and the screen up here. And for this screen, I specifically want this to be a square for reasons I'll explain later on. But to do that, instead of an expanded widget up there, I'm going to use aspect ratio. And so if you don't know what aspect ratio is, it's just the ratio of the width to the height of the screen. So if you're watching this on a MacBook laptop or something, that screen usually has a aspect ratio of 16:9, so 16 across 9 on the top. I just want an aspect ratio of 1. What this means is I just want 1:1. In other words, it's a square. And so this should go up a tiny bit. Yep, there we go. So the top is a square, and this expanded widget is just going to fill the remainder of the space. Okay, so I don't actually want this to be red. For now, let's just put black, and on here, let's put like a dark grayish color. And in the child of this container, let's put another column. And let's add some pretty text. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to say Game Boy and whoops, let's go here. So we have the Game Boy, and then I'm just gonna say just a container, and let's just do red so we can see what's going on there. And I'm gonna put one more text. Let's put some branding in here. So created by Coco. Alrighty, so let's see what this looks like. So yeah, it's all scrunched up there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna specify this axis alignment property. So without this, it all scrunched up to the top. But what I want is, let's choose this one, space between. Okay, so you can see it went down there, and also let's just add some padding here. So padding, and just a padding of 8, maybe padding of 20. And also this game, let's change this style. Let's change the color. So text style, whoops, not that one. Text style, color, white. And let's do the same thing for this guy. Cool. And so this container at the bottom, I guess if I put an expanded widget, you'll be able to see it. Basically in the middle where it's red, I'm going to put the buttons. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file, and let's call it button.dart. And just to save time, I've already built this button, so I'm going to copy it in, and you can pause the video if you need to. And so I've created this button class, and basically what it does is it accepts two variables. So we have a text, and then we've got a function. So if I come over back to my main, in here, right, I'm going to add a few buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a row, and in the children of that row, we're going to put some buttons. So I haven't imported this yet, so you should see some red squiggles underneath, and we're going to import it. And remember how I said the button that we created has two things that we need to input. So text. So I'm just going to call it A. And the function, now we haven't created any functions for the button yet, so I'm just going to put these brackets in. So basically it's executing whatever's in this curly bracket, which I didn't put anything, so it's not really executing anything. But we'll just do that for now, just so that we can see what the button looks like. And let's create A and B. Cool, so yeah, this is what I made over here in the button. I just add some borders, made the border white, and then you just put the text inside. Now with this one, we're gonna need the A and the B, and then we also need the arrows, right? Like the up, left, down, and right. And so yeah, we're gonna do that. So in the row, we're gonna have to add a bunch more things. To get the layout that I want, I'm gonna use a bunch of rows and columns to create a sort of grid. There are other ways to do this. I could use a grid view builder, which I used a lot in the past, but I think just rows and columns will do for the purpose of what we're trying to achieve here. So in the row, I'm going to create another row, and in the children of that, I'm going to put a column, and in the children of that column, let's just copy and paste this button, and let's copy it 3 times, and this column, I'm going to copy and paste 3 of them. Okay, so what this should look like is it should just be a bunch of grids. Good, so we have this grid on the left. This is where I'm going to put up, left, right, down, which means we don't need these individual ones in the middle, right? So wherever you see that, so say for example this first one, let's just put a container and put a height of say 50 and just a width of 50. Let's see if that does, well, cool. So it just gets rid of it. So basically it's a container that does nothing. It's just blank. So I'm just going to go through and copy the ones that I don't want a button in. So it should be these, and this is the last one. Okay, awesome. And one other thing is I want these ABs to be on this side, and this is all together in a row. So we're going to use the main axis alignment and go main axis alignment, and let's say, which one should we do? Space evenly. Cool. That's pretty good for now. I'm going to change these A's, and I'm going to put some arrows in. And these arrows you can get basically from, they're just text arrows that you can get from anywhere. And so I'm going to copy these in. So that's up, this is left, and this is right, and the last one, this one going down. Oops, this one going down. Okay, let's see how that looks. Oh shoot. Okay, what did I do wrong? Whoops, I made a mistake. I should be putting this here. I should be putting this there. And I should be putting this here. Take this guy and put it there. Sweet, so that's that. And the last thing is the AB, like if you look at the Game Boy, it's kind of like in a, like it's not really next to each other horizontally like that. I want a bit of a staggered diagonal movement going on. So to do that, let's do something similar. And I'm just going to copy this guy. And let's put a row of, and in the children, let's put a column. And copy this column. So we're going to create another mini grid, but it's going to be in 4s and not 9s. Again, you can try to do this with a grid builder, like a grid view builder, but I think columns and rows are just fine for what I'm trying to do. Let's see what this looks like first. Yep, there we go. Now the first one, this one, I want to be a container. And the one below here, I want to be that. Cool. And yep, that's basically what I wanted to make. And that's basically all the buttons that we need for a Game Boy, right? And what we'll do is, since we've got all these buttons, let's create the appropriate methods. We'll fill out the methods a bit later on, but let's just create them first. So what do I mean by that? So the move left, right? I'm just going to call it move left. This one is move up. And this one is move down. So yeah, these are all red because we haven't created them, which we'll do just in a second. So move right. And this one, I'm going to call it pressed A. And this one, oh, whoops, this one is pressed A. This one is pressed B. All right, so we've got all these functions that we're going to come over here and create. So void move up. And inside here, we'll put the logic. So move down, move left, move right. What else did we have? We had pressed A. And pressed B. Cool. So these are the methods that we created. So yeah, we can see the squiggles, the red squiggles are gone. And that's basically the UI portion of this game so far. I'm gonna make this just a little bit more prettier. All right, so I'm just gonna copy this in. So the Game Boy here, I wanna paste this in. And let's change this a bit darker. Let's do gray 900. Yep, cool. So this is what I want. The next thing to do is to go onto the internet and download some sprites for our game. And so this is what I did to create MapleStory in the last video. And basically sprites, you know, if you're not sure, it's just basically a collection of images. And so I'm going to download it from this website, but if you just Google Pokemon sprites, you should be able to see a lot of different resources. So you guys can just get whatever whatever images that you guys like. But for this project, what I'm going to do is, firstly, let's go get a map. So Little Root Town, let's go this one. If you've played Pokemon Emerald, Ruby or Sapphire, like that generation, you would know this is where the game starts, right? So once you download this sheet, you're going to get this whole thing as one file. So you're going to have to do a bit of cropping work to get this by itself in its own file, as well as this PokeLab. Those are the two ones I'm going to use mainly for this project. And so if you want, I've already done all the tedious work, and I put all the images that we're going to use in this folder, and you can download my project that has all these images as well as the code from my website if you guys want. But yeah, so what I'm going to use is, the main thing is this one here, so littleroot.png, and the PokeLab, and some of these other ones, like you can see, like there's a lot of different images for the boy, and so this is basically what the sprites are. Like when you put them together, you can't really see because it's too small, but you can see like it's got this kind of walking motion if you put all these images together. And there's a lot of other stuff in here as well, so we're going to use like, you know, this background to create the battle. And yeah, we're going to use a lot of this stuff here. So if you want, like I said, you can download all this from my website and go to your folder where you have the app, and in the library we're going to put the images folder in there. Make sure if you're going to add some resources to your project, you have to tell it. So go to your pub/spec YAML, and under the Flutter you should see the assets. So uncomment that out, and we're going to say this is where our images are at. So library / images and /. When you finish it with a /, it collects everything in that folder. So save it, and then it should do a little pub get. And so while it's doing that, we're going to create a new folder. So I'm going to create a new file, but I'm going to create a new folder first, and I'm going to call it maps, because we're going to have Little Root, but we're going to also have the PokeLab. So we're going to have a collection of maps, and in there, let's create a new file, and we're going to call this littleroot.dart. And in the littleroot.dart, I'm just going to, again, just copy and paste what I've got just to save us some time. You can pause the video if you need, but yeah, this is the little stateless widget, which I'm going to call littleroot. And for this one, we're going to accept 3 things. Okay, so first of all, it's an X and Y coordinate, which helps us position the map on the screen. And also, we also want to pass through what the current map is. So this is going to be useful later on when we have multiple maps. It's always going to check what the map is right now. Okay, so if the current map is Littleroot, then we're going to return this container. And basically what I'm returning is just that image that we had earlier. So library/images.littleroot.png. So make sure that it's, you know, what you've got in this string value, it's the exact path of where you put it in your project folder. Okay, so I'm just going to save this one. Let's go back to our main file here. And on the top side, it's this container here, right? So in that container, we're going to put a child. And this is where we're going to use this widget here, the stack widget. And the stack widget does what it sounds like. It stacks a bunch of widgets on top of each other. And the first thing we're going to put on this stack is, yeah, let's just put littleroot as a comment. And we're going to import the map. Sometimes it imports it automatically, but if it's got a red squiggle, just click on this and you will see an import option. And remember, in the Littleroot, we had a few options. So we're going to have to fill this out. So X, Y, and the current map. Now we're going to put variables in here, but if I just put 0, 0, and current map, let's just call it Littleroot for now. Let's see what this looks like. Hey, so yep, there's our image. Now this Littleroot, like the X and the Y, like I said, it's like coordinates. So if I, for example, say 0.5, 0.5, it'll shift a little bit. Okay, and so if you're not quite sure how the numbers work. As a general rule of thumb, in terms of the x coordinate, right, that's horizontal. It goes from -1, 0 in the middle, to +1. And in the same way with the y coordinate, which is the vertical axis, -1, 0, and +1. Okay, so using these values, 0, 0 would be just in the middle. And we don't want to hard code these values in. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to say, let's call this map x and map y. So just the x coordinate and the y coordinate of the map. And this we're going to add a variable later on as well. Let's do that now actually. Let's call this, let's create a current location variable. Okay, so let's come up here and create some variables. Let's say variables, and the first one is for little root, and we're going to have a double map x, which is just currently 0, double map y, just leave it at 0. And also let's just do, I don't know, let's just write game stuff. So some extra settings we have to worry about, which is a string of the current location. And when the game starts, the current location is just little root. Cool. So this way, when we use variables, we don't have to hard code in these values. We can actually change the location and change the coordinates with some of these functions that we created earlier. Cool. Now, one more thing is to make this seem more like a game is let's create a boy. So I'm going to create another folder called characters. And in the characters, I'm going to create a file called boy.dart. And in here, we're going to return the material.dart file like usual. Create a stateless widget, and let's call it my boy. And in the container, I'm just going to give it a height of 50. We'll see how that looks. And the child, so this is where we're going to go grab the image. So image.asset, we have, where did we put it? So library, images. Now in the images for the boy, I have a bunch of them, right? And this is all depending on what direction I'm facing and am I like in the middle of a walk. What I'm going to do is, just before we worry about those different sprites, I'm just going to use the first one, boy down 0.png, just to show you guys what it would look like with one of the sprites. And in here, let's put a fit box fit.cover. So I'm just going to fill out the rest of the space. Come over back to our main, and in the stack, let's say boy character, and bring in the boy. So this should be red because we didn't import it yet. And let's just see how this looks. Okay, sweet. So you can see like there's our boy. Now I'm gonna wrap this in a container, and in the container there is this alignment property. And what we're going to put in this alignment property is we're going to use those coordinates as I spoke about before. So like x and y coordinates. And for the boy, it's just always going to be in the middle. Now that boy looks a little too big, so I'm going to come over here and change the height to say 20. Yep, that looks like an appropriate size. And one thing I don't know if you guys have noticed when you play Pokemon, the character, like the boy, doesn't actually move in terms of the position on the screen. Like it's always in the middle, and it's actually the map that moves around. Yeah, like that's actually how the movement occurs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the little root and the boy so that the boy is placed in such a way that it's all like in nice grids, and like you can just move where it's supposed to. So right now you can see it's kind of not in a good position. But just to show you guys something, let's do this move up and move down. And I'm just going to show you how we would go about moving a boy like this around the map. So first of all, let's say move up, right? We're going to have to change the coordinates. And right now, the coordinates of the map is at map X and map Y. So if we do something like this, right? So set state map X, let's say plus equals, sorry, I'm going to do map Y since I'm moving up, plus equals to 0.2. This is just a random number I chose. So remember, -1 here, 0, and +1 there. So if I move the map up a bit, it's going to change these values, and let's see how this looks. Okay, so if I press up, so you can see like I'm moving the map around. Let's do the same thing for down. We're going to have to fine tune the 0.2 number later on. This one, let's do minus. By the way, if you don't know what this notation means, it's the same thing as map y minus 0.2. So map y equals to what it was before minus 0.2. But this is a very handy shorthand way to write it. Okay, what about moving left? So moving left, we're going to change the x coordinates, right? And moving right, we're also going to change the x coordinates. One of these should be negative. Let's just see how it looks. Let's test it out. Yeah, actually I did it the wrong way. Plus, minus. Cool. And go this way and go up and go like this. So this is basically the movement. Now, obviously it looks so unnatural because he's facing like downwards the whole time. And that's why we have all of these sprites, right? So you can see before I only used boy down 0. And so boy down, each of these should have a 0, 1, 2. So 0 is just stationary, you're just staying still. It's very small. And boy 1 is like, you're like mid walk. It's like the right foot first. And then boy down 2 is the other foot. And so when you cycle through these, it creates them, it creates like a motion, right? Like an animation. So you got the down, left, right, up, and each of them have their own little sprite, the 0, 1, 2. So that's why I'm gonna just change this file just a tad. I'm gonna copy what I wrote in, or what I coded up. Okay, and so yeah, this is basically all we're going to need. So don't worry too much about the location for now. So this is just making sure we're in the right location. The main thing is down here. I want you to try to understand this code. So before I just returned one image, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that in our main function, in our main file over here, I want to pass through some information to this my boy file. Information such as the direction I'm looking at and also the sprite count. So remember how I showed you 0 is just for standing and the 1 and the 2 are for walking. Right, and of course just the location of where I'm at. So this is called concatenating a string. So I'm gonna have this first part of the string. I know they all start with boy, but then after boy it's the direction, right? So I'm gonna put the direction. So if it was left, it would say boy left, and we're gonna add that on and concatenate it to this string file. And the next thing after that is the sprite count, right? So the sprite count meaning are you at 0, 1, or 2? So which part of the animation are you at? And because boy sprite count is an integer as opposed to a string, we're gonna have to convert it to a string. And make sure to finish off the file. The name is finishing off with .png. Okay, which means we're gonna have to pass through this information, right? So if you go back to our boy, we have all of these options that we need to sort through. So we had current location, boy sprite count, and the direction that I'm going in. The current location is, we already made a variable for this one. For the boy sprite count, we haven't really made this, but it's going to be a number between 0, 1, or 2. So let's just call it boy sprite count, and we'll specify this at the top. And the last thing is the direction. So I'm just going to call it boy direction. Okay, so if you come over here, I'm going to create this one. Oh, it looks like I accidentally already did. So boy character. The first thing was a integer of boy sprite count. And when you fire up the game at the beginning, let's just set it to be 0. So we're just standing still. We'll just write a comment 0 for standing, 1 to 2 for walking. What else did we need? So we had the sprite count. We also had the direction. So string boy direction. And at the beginning, let's call it down. And by the way, these capital letters matter, right? So because this boy direction, which is down, it has to be capital D. And make sure just it lines up with all of these file names. So yeah, what I'm going to do is when you move up, we can say boy direction is up. When I'm moving down, let's say boy direction is down. When you're moving left, boy direction is left. And when you're moving right, boy direction is right. Every time you hit any of these buttons, this boy should face the right direction. Okay, and that's what all of these lines of codes are doing, right? So we're changing this variable boy direction, which gets passed through into here, right? And then the information goes to this file, and then we get the direction, and then finally we can put that direction into the file name of where this string, where this image is. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. Let's restart this, and the main thing we're going to look for is to make sure it faces the right direction. Yay! So you can see, like, if I go left, I'm looking left. If I go up, I'm looking up, and down, I'm looking down. Again, so we made a little progress, but still it doesn't look too natural, right? Because it's not moving at all. So this is where the 0, 1, 2 sprites come into play. So let's come over here and create another function. I'm going to call it animate walk. And in this animate walk, we're going to bring in a timer. So I use a lot of timers in my apps. Let's import the timer, and so I'm just going to run through what this timer is doing. So every 50 milliseconds we're going to set the state, and we're going to increase the boy sprite count by 1. So plus plus just means add 1 to the number. But the thing is, we don't want to continuously add numbers because we only go from 0 to 1 to 2 and then back to 0. So what this does is if you add it and then you happen to be at the number 3, we don't have a 3, so just change it back to 0. Okay, and cancel the timer. And so this animate walk is what's going to cycle through the boy sprite counts. And so we should be putting this every time we, basically every time we walk. So yeah, let's go at the bottom of each of these functions, just put the animate walk with, of course, a semicolon. And let's save this and run it. And hopefully this looks a little more realistic. All right. Yay, so you can see what I mean by the cycling through the sprites. So you can see like you can see him like running a bit. Okay, so that is one big part of making this game. So hopefully that made sense. Now the next big part is to make sure that, like, you know how before we just made it 0.2 as the number we're just kind of moving around with, but 0.2 was just a random number, I guessed. It's not exactly, it's actually pretty close, but we should be able to fine tune the numbers because this game should go in like, yeah, you can see like that from in front of that sign, it should be like 1, 2, and then you should be right in front of the door. So this is where we're gonna have to fine tune this number to match this image that we have so that we just move properly. I'm just gonna call it step. We haven't made this variable yet, but let's just call it step so that we don't have to change it 4 times. Right, in this game stuff, I'm gonna call it double step is 0. I've already got the number here. What was it? 0.25? Yeah, 0.25. And so let's see how this looks. Oh yeah, and the other thing is this map. I found the coordinates for this one too. So you can see like the way we're starting, we're kind of on the edge of this house, which I don't want. I found the exact coordinate. It's this one and 0.65. Yes, good. So yeah, I found these numbers exactly so that it's in front of the house, and hopefully moving at a step of 0.25 is just right. Hey, and then I can go in front of that house. So you can see like you want this to happen, right? We want to walk in the correct proportion. Now, one problem is you're just going to keep going off the screen. So yeah, this is where we're going to have to now put some barriers where we can't walk through everything. This is like a Pokemon hack. I don't know if you guys, when you played Pokemon and then you played on your emulator and you can start to walk through walls with different hacks. But anyway, that's the main thing that we're going to try to focus on now, which is to avoid walking through walls. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list. Yeah, let's call it No Man's Land for Little Root. And I'm going to create a big list. So it's going to be a list of doubles. And I'm going to call it No Man's Land Little Root. And actually, it's not just a list of doubles. Like a list of doubles would be like just a list of numbers like this. But what I actually want is a list of doubles. And hopefully that's not doing your head in, because I'll explain. Instead of just having single numbers, I want 2 numbers. So for example, like 0.5, 0.5, because these represent coordinates, remember? So what I'm going to do is something useful is when you animate the walk, every time we animate the walk, so every time we're walking, I'm going to print something out. I'm going to print x is map x dot to string, and y is map y to string. Okay, so why did I do that? Oh, whoops, what's going on here? Put a semicolon. So this print, what I'm basically doing is every time I move, I'm gonna just basically see the coordinate of where I'm at. So you can see like, you know what, let's make this even better. So yeah, as I walk around, you can see in my terminal, you can see like it's gonna print where you are currently, your map X and your map Y coordinates. And so using these values, this is where I was able to find exactly where I wanted to be. So for example, right, like that beginning position is where I wanted. You can see it's like X is 1.125, Y is 0.65. So that's how I got these numbers. And also we're going to use this to find the coordinates in which we don't want to go to, right? So for example, like this sign, like there's like a little sign there. I don't want to be able to stand here, and this coordinate is this one. So 0.625 and 0.9. Okay, and so I'm just going to go through it and find where I don't want to stand. So I have this function that I made. It's a boolean, meaning it's going to return either a true or false, and it's basically going to say you either can move to it or you can't. And so basically what this does is it checks the no man's land, so the list that we made earlier, so this one here. And anytime we're about to go somewhere, it's going to check if where you're trying to go consists of any of these numbers, because if it does, then you're not allowed to go there. And so to do that, we're just going to create a little bit of changes to our functions here. So in the move left, we're going to do this. In the move right, we're going to do this. And again, basically, we're just checking, can I move to this location? And if you can, do what you were doing normally. Okay, otherwise, if it doesn't meet this condition, it's not going to do anything. Yep, this one here. So let's see if this works, because we currently have only one place where we're not allowed to go, and that's that signage, right? So let's see if I can walk to it. Yeah, so you can't. So you can see it's just animating the walk, but we're not actually going onto that position because it's a no man's land. Okay, so using this idea, we can create all of these different coordinates that we don't want to go through and put all those numbers in this list here. Obviously, this might take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to bring it all in. Cool, so I've just copied it in. So these are all the coordinates, just going through all of these walls and all of these houses. So these are the locations of the coordinates that we can't walk to. So if I save this, just like we did just for that little post there, we shouldn't be able to go to the house now. We're like walking through, we can't walk through this building. And same thing for the walls, all of these coordinates I put through. So hopefully that idea makes sense, and like these signages we can't go through as well. Looks like everything's animating except for going up, I think. Moving up. Oh yes, there is no animate. The next thing is I want to be able to go and enter one of these houses, right? So this is the Pokey Lab. So right now I can't go to it, right? I'm like sitting on the door. And so basically when I'm on this door, right, which is this coordinate here, then I'm going to change the map. Okay, so this is where the Pokey Lab, this one here, we're going to put this one. So when we step on this particular coordinate, we want to change the map to this Pokey Lab. Alrighty, so how are we going to do that? So the only way you can enter this is by hitting this up arrow, right? If you're in this position and you hit up, that's the only way that we can enter the Pokey Lab, which means we're going to work with this function here. Let's come over here and create some variables for the Pokey Lab. So under the little root, I'm going to create Pokey Lab double, I'm going to call it lab map x, and I don't know what it is currently, so let's just do zeros. Cool. And then, as I said before, going up is the only way to enter this house. So if you go to the up function over here, I'm going to paste this guy in. So why is this red? Lap map. No, it's lab map. Okay. I'm just going to explain what I've written down in this code. So as I said before, if you're at this particular location, which is 0.625 minus 1.1. So I'm just checking, okay, the x is at 0.625 and the y is at minus 1.1. If you're at this location, which is this door, we're going to change the current location to Pokey Lab, right? So current location was little root, but if we're standing on this door, we're going to change it to Pokey Lab. And we're also going to set these ones here. And I think these ones I just figured out in my own time, that these are the exact coordinates to go through. And just before we save this, we are going to have to go to the map and make a new file. So pokeylab.dart. So it's very similar to the little root, right? It's just going to accept an x or y coordinate and just check what map you are in currently. So if we're in Pokylab, then let's return the Pokylab image. So if we come back here, we're going to have to go to our stack where the UI portion is. And I'm going to call this Pokylab. And Pokylab, oh, my Pokylab, and x is lab map x, y is lab map y, and current location or current map is just the current location. Okay, let's see if this works. So if I come over here and I enter this house, hopefully if I hit up, I'm going to change the map. And there it is. Looks like I'm not in the correct location, which we can fix. But yeah, so you can see like how we changed the map. Now that's why if you go to each of these folders, each of these files, that's why this current map is very important, because if you're currently at little root, then return little root. But if you're not at little root, so if you're not there, then we're just going to return a blank container. So this way, same as the Pokey Lab, this way like it'll turn off a map and turn it on when we are currently on it. Now at this point, the code for the Pokey Lab and the little root is very similar. So I'm just going to paste all that in, and hopefully you guys got the idea of how I created this so far. And so if I go into the Pokey Lab, the thing about these games with each map, like each room, because it's unique, there's no real way to automate the process of like finding which barriers you're allowed to go to and not go to. So with that being said, it shouldn't really take too long to just find the coordinates and put them in a list. Okay, especially the main thing is this useful function that we can make, just one that it can just take in any list, which is where is it? Is this list here? So they just put in the list and just check which direction you're going to and where you are currently, and then it will just check for you if you're allowed to go to that location. So as long as you got this function, this one is the one that's doing all the hard work. Next thing to do is I'm going to add an extra character, and let's add Professor Oak, and we're going to talk to him, sorry, and have a little conversation, and then we're going to have a small battle, and that's where I'm going to leave off. So I'm going to add these variables for Professor Oak. So same thing with the character that we had for the boy. The oak direction, just some coordinates, and I just add some variables here which we're going to use later on for when we have a conversation with him. Now let's come down to our UI stack here, and we're going to add Professor Oak. Now before we do that, we should add a file here. So in the characters, let's add a oak.dart file, and I'm just going to copy my file in, and let's paste this in. So we talked about it with the boy.dart file, but similarly we have the x and y coordinates, the location, and the direction that Professor Oak is facing. So when we talk to it, we don't want him to continually face down, we want him to face us, right? And so we're going to use that string concatenation thing that we did, and so that we can link it up to the images that we have in the folder. Now one really important thing about when you're cropping the images, if I show you, where are you? So images, if I show you Professor Oak, it's the same size as the little root image that we have. So this was a square. Like if I just move around a bit. So this square, you have to make it the exact same dimensions as a square. Okay, because when we shift the maps around, we want everything to be in proportion. So what I mean is, say for example this guy. So it's not just an image of Professor Oak, it's Professor Oak in the context of this square. Okay, so that's really important when you crop these images. Make sure it's the same size as the little root, like the same as the map. Now let's add Professor Oak to the UI, and let's import the file that we have. And if we save this, let's see how this looks. Okay, yep, so that's where I placed him in the image. Now we don't want to walk through him. So we're going to have to add this particular coordinate into our no man's land. Now once you've added this particular coordinate that Professor Oak is standing on to the no man's land, then it should just be like any other barrier, and we can't walk through this person. And hopefully if I strike up a conversation, he will face our direction. Cool, and there it is. Now one thing is, I do want to try to keep these tutorials to roughly like an hour or less, and so I do want to finish up pretty soon, but I'll just quickly go over the conversation part of it and the battle as well. Now if I just hit A again and hit again, oh whoops, there was some bad language there. Yeah, I don't know if you guys caught that, but I used animated containers to enter the Pokemon into the battlefield. So I specified a particular duration, and you can see like from the side, like everything will sort of come in. So I was just mimicking the what the battle looks like in the actual game. And there's a little menu that I made here, and you can run or you can just fight. And yeah, I only made one move. And so yeah, you can just kind of hit it, and then once you get down to the 0 bar, then yeah, you just die, and Charmander fainted. So this little section, so if you look at the code that I've made up, there's a few different folders at the end of it. So characters, which is Boy, Charmander, Professor Oak, and the Pikachu. So yeah, the 2 Pokemon that we looked at just then. A big images file which has all the sprites and the maps. So there was, in total so far for these 3 for this project, there was 3 maps, which was the Little Route, which is what we're standing on, the Pokemon Lab, and Battleground. So that's the when we like had a fight. And the last thing is just this utilities one. So it's just a bunch of extra things like chat bubble, health bar, you know, the button stuff. And so I kind of try to organize it as neatly as I can. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. And like I said, let me know below if this was something of interest to you, and I can kind of continue making this. Maybe we can like go through here and, you know, the game just continues. But yeah, other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See yous.